GTR listeners, the official Gamertag Radio store is now open on TeePublic. Go to store.gamertagradio.com. That's store.gamertagradio.com. Represent us. You could buy t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, posters, stickers, and much, much more. We are planning to add more designs coming very soon to the store, but as of right now, we have a couple of designs available now, like I Love Gaming and the GTR, Gamertag Radio logo, and so on. It's pretty cool. So go right now to store.gamertagradio.com. That's store.gamertagradio.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, podcasting since 2005. You're listening to Gamertag Radio with your hosts, podcaster Hall of Famer Danny Pena, the always opinionated Paris Lilly, and from outside of the norm, Peter Toledo. This is Gamertag Radio.
Welcome to another episode of Gamertag Radio, and I'm live here in LA, and I have some friends here for this episode, and we're going to be talking about our E3, not misleader predictions, but semi, and thoughts and, things that we think is gonna happen during E3 and stuff. So joining me this week for this episode, because Paris and P, they're not here, we have Jake here. Jake, what's going on, man?
What's happening, my man? How you been overall?
Good, man. Good. So I know you're hype and ready for this year's E3. I know we have another guest too here, but before we start our conversation about E3, what's going on with you, man? How's your appointments? Everything is good for this year's E3 or what for you?
Well, right now, again, it's still a little bit early. Again, we're a couple weeks out, and things are starting to come in, and I'm already building on my schedule. For me, this year's E3 is different because this year I'm going to celebrate my birthday at E3, which is what I never did before. Normally, my birthday falls after E3, but I was like, you know what? I want this year to be a little bit more different, a little bit more special, so I'm actually going to be with everybody, and it's going to be my birthday week celebration. So I'm really hyped up about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait.
Awesome, man. And also joining me this episode, he's been on our show many times in the past. Robert Workman, man. How you doing, man?
Good. Paris isn't here, so I'm doing all right.
So, see, when Paris is not here, that's when Robert shows up.
Yeah, what's up? I'm here. How's it going? No, I'm kidding around with Paris. It was good seeing him at this event. I know he's doing other stuff with his job and all. But always a pleasure to stop by and talk with you guys, man, and especially about E3. I'm knocking out. We're going with our team at WWG over there at comicbook.com. We're going to kick ass, take names, and do the best coverage we can. So we're going to just kill it this year. I can't wait.
All right, so let's talk about what's going to happen with E3. But first, guys, head over to gamertagradio.com. Post your comments there. Share our content. Also, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and other podcast directories. And make sure to buy our gear. We have hoodies, T-shirts. We even have posters and stickers. If you don't want to buy no T-shirts and stuff like that, go to store.gamertagradio.com. That's store.gamertagradio.com.
Send us your feedback or questions. Give us a call at 786-273-7GTR. Email us at fanmail@gamertagradio.com or leave a message on speakpipe.com/gamertagradio.
All right, so let's go with our thoughts about E3 and everything, man. And I know we were having this conversation yesterday, actually. We were talking about the surprises and stuff. And I mentioned to you guys that now that I kind of know what Sony is going to show, because they basically flat out said what their plans, I was excited at first, because I'm like, yo, they're probably going to show some new games, new stuff. But now they said we're going to focus on just 4 games. And yeah, we'll have a couple of new third-party surprises, announcements and stuff. But to me, it's not really enough. But they basically killed the whole hype when I had with PlayStation. Your thoughts about this, man?
Well, I went to PSX last year, and I know Jake went too. When they did their presentation there, it was nowhere near what they did in 2016. They just had a thing where they sat down with different teams, talked about their upcoming games, and revealed one game, Medieval, the remake, or remaster, I guess. But, I mean, it just sounds like they're still taking that low-key approach because they don't need to go all out. They're leading the game industry right now. They're number one sales. So, I mean, they're going to leave it to the third parties to do whatever they want to do. And it's a low-key approach. It's going to work for them. They're going to pack the house. People want to see Last of Us Part 2, Spider-Man, all that. It's going to really work for them. But by the same token, you're right. It kind of deflates the idea of surprise. Unless they do something like Borderlands 3, Diablo 4, who knows? You know, it could be anything from third parties. But it sounds like they're just going to keep it chill, whereas Microsoft and Nintendo now have the opportunity to come forward with their surprises and where they're going to shine. Obviously, we're going to talk about it later this episode, but I think Sony's just like, we're in a good first place spot. We don't need to talk about PlayStation 5. Let's just bring the games and let's talk about the games. And maybe, who knows, we'll figure out what the hell Death Stranding is, because I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I know we mentioned this on our podcast, but they definitely got to show some type of gameplay or something, because if they're going to show just videos of that game, it's going to be frustrating, man. Like, what is the reason for me to buy that game? It can't be because of the developer. It has to be because of the game. So they definitely, I think it's time right now for them to show, like, I'm excited about Spider-Man, but we've been seeing gameplay footage for the past, it's going to be 3 years now. So I'm hype about Spider-Man. Other people are hype, but you as a listener, for those who are listening, what is it that you're so hype about Death Stranding? Because still to this day, I don't know what that game is about.
There is one thing I want to add. I mean, Sony does know how to do the slow burn and surprise us. God of War, there was no hands-on before it came out. We got trailers here and there, but that's really about it. Then we played it, and it was mesmerizing. I mean, it surprised us, took it out of left field. I think that's kind of the approach they're going for, but it would be nice to know more details of what we're getting into over the next year. So I could kind of see it, but,
And what about you, Jake? Your thoughts about Sony finally saying, okay, we're going to have this on our press conference. To you, as a fan of Sony, do you think that kind of killed the whole hype for you?
For me, I'm still hyped up about it. I had some time to sleep on it a little bit after we had our convo originally. And I'm kind of a little bit more of the mindset of where you guys are at now, as far as it not being as crazy, exciting, and hyped up as the other two. I mean, I'm still excited, though, because I still feel like what we're going to see is still going to be special, still going to be fun, because obviously I'm with you. I think we should see Death Stranding gameplay at this point. I think that it's been teased a lot. It's been riding the Hideo Kojima name and Kojima Productions name for a while now, and I think it's time to actually show something to everybody and get us excited about, okay, this is how we're going to play something, because Kojima and Sony have been talking big about that game for a while, besides all the weird, crazy CG stuff we've been seeing. But I think they need to put it more into context. They need to kind of give us more clarity of what that game actually is, like what you were saying. I think we're also going to see some stuff, obviously, from The Last of Us Part 2. I think we're going to get a little bit much more gameplay from stuff like that. And also Ghost of Tsushima, which I think those 3 games out of the 4 are going to be the ones that people get hyped up about, and the ones that we get a little bit more satisfaction about what is shown. Because, like you mentioned, we've seen Spider-Man already. We know what Spider-Man's going to be. Spider-Man's coming out this year. So I think we're pretty much said, like, if we're going to buy it, we're going to buy it. And that's fine. But as far as like other stuff beyond those 4 games, I still think that we're going to get some surprises, like as far as teases. Probably not like big gameplay reveals or like much more in-depth reveals as those 4, but I still feel like there's still going to be conversation starters from that conference about games that either we didn't see so much before or probably we never seen before, but stuff that's like a good exclamation point or a good accent on top of those 4 games. Because remember, there's still stuff that apparently has been, rumored for a while, that stuff that's been talked about being shown at other events that just didn't show up and stuff. And I feel like there's still some potential there to see that type of stuff. If not, then maybe down the line, if not at all.
Now, let's go with Microsoft and Nintendo, especially Microsoft, because I think Microsoft has a bigger opportunity right now to really create a crazy buzz with their press conference. They could be lately. They've been a lot of random announcements lately, like on Inside Xbox, and I know they announced the new controller for disabled gamers and stuff. I think to me that was amazing. And you know what? I think it was, in my opinion, it was the right way for them to announce that before E3. Let that get that shine, because I feel like if they would announce that at E3, there would have been so many crazy announcements for not only them but other companies. People, I think, will forget about it. So the way how they announced it now, I think it was perfect. Recently now, a couple of days ago, Inside Xbox they had also an announcement about a new arcade for Halo. Again, something totally different. Nobody knew it was going on, everything, right? But I have a feeling that they have some stuff cooking behind the scenes. New games. They have the opportunity to bring back some old IPs from back in the days and announce at E3 and create that excitement that we got to see in the past with PlayStation or Nintendo. And Microsoft hasn't done that in years, I think. So in this generation, they haven't done that at all. So your thoughts, Robert?
Well, we talked about this a great deal last night, and I think the thing that interests me the most is when they had conversations in Japan with Sega and Capcom, because that could very well tie in with some stuff that we talked about. I'll let you mention the names that we talked about, but I mean, if that potentially works out, if they're going after franchises that really would do well coming back from years of obscurity, like Crash Bandicoot did, like Spyro the Dragon's going to. I mean, if they can bring back these franchises from obscurity, make fresh new entries, and really surprise people, not only would that help, I mean, obviously hardcore gamers in this market, but also Japan, where they are lagging furiously behind. So obviously, the more of those franchises we see, the better chance they stand to gain traction before the next generation arrives in a couple of years.
So the conversation we were having the other day, we were talking about, I mentioned this a couple months ago. I don't know if it was this year or sometime last year. Phil Spencer came back from Japan and he posted on Twitter that he was had meetings with companies, developers. He never mentioned the name about that, but he said that it was a great meeting. He can't wait. And I know in the past interviews he also mentioned that he doesn't want to quit Japan. Everybody knows that Xbox in Japan is like the biggest flop over there out of the three. It's doing horribly over there. So personally, I know I mentioned this to you guys during our private conversation. I think it's Sega. And the reason why I think it's Sega, because look, Nintendo funded for Bayonetta now multiple times. And now the third game coming out, and that's all Nintendo that funded that money. I know Sega a couple weeks ago had a kind of like a fan fest type thing for Sega fans. They're bringing back the Sega Genesis, like a Sega Genesis Mini. They Shenmue collection. So they're doing different things, but they also bringing back a lot of the old titles now, right? And honestly, there's a lot of young gamers that never got to play Shenmue and all these other games that came out during the Sega Dreamcast. Yeah, so that's one thing. Also, another thing I've been noticing, and I know I mentioned this on a podcast many times, is that I've been noticing older games from Sega has been popping up on Xbox Live. If you have the Xbox Live Gold, I think also for BC, I know they announced Panzer Dragoon Orta. You could play it. So I'm like, okay, I can tell that the relationship with Sega and Microsoft is growing even more. Back in 2000, when Sega Dreamcast stopped, I think they will stop making games for the Dreamcast. The games that they were working on they started working on the original Xbox. One of them was Jet Set Radio Future. So I think, in my opinion, I think they're going to bring back Jet Set Radio Future. So they could, not Future, but probably going to have a different name. Jet Set Radio, whatever. So the reason why I said that is because they could easily announce that, and they could also say you could play Jet Set Radio Future from the original Xbox right now on Game Pass, or you could buy it individually. Because I think this year's press conference, they're going to really, really, really focus on Game Pass. And before I give you the mic, another thing that happened to when the Duke controller came out, inside there's a thank you card, and they have different names of people that have been working on it. Phil Spencer, Aaron Greenberg, a couple people there. So in the bottom, it says, thank you to the developers of Halo, and thank you to the developers of Jet Set Radio Future. Now, my question to you, why would Microsoft would say thank you to the developers of Jet Set Radio Future for the dual controller that came out in freaking 2001? Could that be a hint that we might see a Jet Set Radio game in the future on Xbox?
Microsoft said it's listening to its fans. And when the latest batch of Xbox backward-compatible games were announced, SSX3, Panzer Dragoon Orta, a lot of fans said, where's Jet Set Radio Future? And there's been a huge following on social media for that game. So they're paying close attention to that. So, I mean, they're paying close attention to the hits that they think can make a comeback. We talked about several of them. I mean, not just Jet Set Radio, but there's the possibility that to make things up with Platinum Games after what happened with Scalebound, which also might be coming back, we could see a sequel to Vanquish, because Vanquish is now on Xbox backward compatibility as well. And obviously, Platinum Game properties are hot right now because Bayonetta. But we also brought up another possibility, Phantasy Star Online, because that was a big hit back in the Dreamcast day, and we haven't had a US port in, years since the GameCube. So, I mean, it just seems like Microsoft is digging into these franchises they know could be hits. Like a Jet Set Radio, if they announced it, 83, they'd pretty much win E3 because nobody would stop going nuts over Jet Set Radio. You know, they probably scream it in the halls, Jet Set Radio, walking out of the theater. So it sounds like they have a vital opportunity here. And not just with Sega. We also talked about Capcom and the possibility of the return of Power Stone, which is another franchise that's in dire need of a comeback because we haven't seen it since, 2 or the PSP version. So, I mean, it just sounds like Microsoft is really starting to tap in on these franchises and also first party too. You know, you got Perfect Dark, Forza, Fable, Fable making a comeback, possibly Banjo-Kazooie without nuts and bolts, thank you. And it sounds like they really want to channel into these games that we grew up with and understand and appreciate, while at the same time opening a door for older games to go on Game Pass or available for backward compatibility. So it's really a 1-2 win for them. I mean, they can attract new players for their Xbox One with these new games and introduce them to stuff in the past that would really attract them as well. I mean, I can imagine a Power Stone HD re-release to go along with 3 if they announced that.
What about you, Jake?
I think there's a lot of potential there. I don't think they just, or, somebody just puts a thing right there that just seems so random without reason. Again, because there's a lot of optics that come along with it and a lot of other discussions that happen. I think that it's plausible with a lot of stuff that you mentioned with Sega. It seems like that could be a thing, and that could be a very cool announcement at E3, a very cool surprise, because especially it ties into Game Pass with all the stuff that they could kind of build up the library that's available through backwards compatibility and through Game Pass, as well as also just, again, like you mentioned, bringing these legacy franchises back that people want, older gamers want, people want to play, and also, get new versions and new entries of them. I think that for Microsoft, they have the most potential to have a lot of fun surprises, even though, again, there's a lot of mystery going into E3 this year with them, for better or for worse. I find more the Phantasy Star stuff seems to me to be a little bit more plausible as far as like a cool surprise, because some time ago, I want to say like a couple of years ago, there was a Phantasy Star game, a brand new one that was being developed for PC that kind of just got dropped and you never heard about it again. So
It came out in Japan, though.
Did it come out in Japan? I don't remember if it did.
I'm a huge Phantasy Star.
But, we never heard about it again here in the States. And I know that people, when they saw stuff like that, it being talked about, people wanted that because people love Phantasy Star. Phantasy Star has a big following for people that love RPGs and stuff. And obviously, with Sega matching up with the Dreamcast and all that stuff, there's a big following for that. So I would totally be cool seeing stuff like that happen, as well as also, again, mentioning again legacy franchises making a return. I'm still surprised and utterly shocked why another Banjo-Kazooie game hasn't been made, or even a new Conker game, because with all the mascot games or the mascot characters making some sort of comeback with Spyro, with Crash, you could say Ratchet and Clank had one not too long ago, Sly Cooper had one with Sly 4, Thieves in Time. There's all these different mascots, and Microsoft has yet to really have that type of character within their arsenal, within their repertoire of games, to really kind of come into their own. And I always felt like because of Rare working with them, Banjo-Kazooie and Conker would be ideal for that, because again, it would diversify their palette of games available. So to me, if for them to really kind of like be like, okay, this was like one of the best conferences I've seen this year, 2018, I want to see stuff like that. I want to see these types of things come to pass. But again, trying to temper my expectations to be a little bit more realistic. But with all this stuff, the little hints like you mentioned happening here and there, I think there's some plausibility there.
Here's the thing that I've been noticing too. You could also think about how the video streaming services are changing. They're bringing back a lot of the old shows back. I know Roseanne has been doing good on TV. But Netflix is known for bringing back a lot of the old shows back then, and it'll become like a hit again because the older fans, they miss that, right? So I think personally, Microsoft probably learned from that, from the video entertainment industry. They've seen that, and they're pushing a lot of Game Pass. They could do that with all these games and bring back those older gamers that they love those franchises. Crimson Skies, Jet Set Radio, Phantasy Star, Fable. They have so many games that came out in the past that they could take advantage right now in 2018 and beyond, and it will create the craziest buzz, I think, because the only company that has been doing that for the past few years, create like a big, huge buzz based on just them showing the trailer. PlayStation has done that with Final Fantasy VII Remake and Shenmue, the return of Shenmue 3. Yeah, so it hasn't been out, but it's just that creating that buzz that is going to create that conversation. The gamers are going to get excited, and I think that this is a big, huge opportunity for Microsoft to do this. And I just find it weird. Out of all people, Phil Spencer, the top guy, goes to Japan for some strange reason. He didn't say Xbox, Microsoft Japan. He said developers. That he had meetings with developers. So to me, I have faith that they're going to do some crazy announcements, I think, at E3.
And there's another thing to consider, too. They're also strengthening third-party ties because third-party support, they reportedly will have the Red Dead Redemption 2 exclusive content thing. That's not finalized. Obviously, Rockstar's Rockstar.
I think that's more PlayStation.
Yeah, right. But I'm just saying they're trying to go after third parties like that. They're trying to get like Ubisoft's Splinter Cell to do something with Xbox One. And then, of course, there's EA. I mean, EA has been supporting with EA Access, with all these backward compatible titles. Microsoft could probably wave a few bucks their way and get exclusive NBA Jam, which I've been hearing about. Instead of Need for Speed, bring back Burnout. Burnout 3 Takedown is still one of the previous generation's greatest racing games. So, if they can strengthen their ties with third parties while at the same time strengthening their first-party lineup, that would really balance out the Xbox One even more. And, they would bring more announcements to their table. Because right now they have an opportunity. Like we said, Sony's playing it safe. Microsoft can go all out with bam, 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 all these announcements, coming out of left field. They were doing that years ago when they announced Killer Instinct out of nowhere. That floored a lot of people because they did not think Killer Instinct was going to come back. They could do that this year with Perfect Dark, with Fable, NBA Jam, Burnout, Jet Set, whatever. They just need to bring the hits, not talk about teraflops. That killed last year for me. They had some good announcements, but they kept talking about their hardware. This year it's about games. It has to be.
I agree. I think there's a lot of potential there to have a lot of shocking, fun moments from this year's E3 for Microsoft specifically. Here's hoping that some of this stuff follows through. I think that because Phil Spencer was the one that actually said stuff like that, that's what gives it credibility. That's what gives it the most okay, maybe there's something there.
Now, what about Nintendo? Do you think that Nintendo is going to play it safe, or do you think that Nintendo are going to go guns blazing and they're going to go crazy with their announcements? We already know about Smash Brothers, which I think they're going to say we're going to have available playable at E3. But wait, for those at home, go to Best Buy and play the demo at these days at Best Buy.
I think for them it's going to be about quality and not quantity. I think they already said 2018 is going to be their focus, so we won't see too much of Metroid Prime, probably nothing from Bayonetta 3, but what we will see, we'll see those Pokemon announcements, probably the Let's Go Eevee Pikachu thing that they announced. I want to see more about this rumored Star Fox game, which is a racing game along the lines of Diddy Kong Racing by Retro Studios. If they announce that for a fall winter release to go alongside Super Smash Brothers, it's going to be nice. But, there's also the potential for third-party announcements. I'm hearing Ridge Racer may make a comeback with Ridge Racer 8 exclusively on Switch. Fighter Z is likely to be announced. And, of course, somewhere in the midst of that, we're going to get a Fortnite announcement. Epic Games is already setting up a huge booth and the celebrity thing. So,
question about that. And I know we talked about this on the side. Where's Epic Games booth at E3? Is it in the same area where Nintendo? Oh, is it south? Is it a different? Okay, I think. Don't you find this kind of strange that Nintendo said on their Twitter account, if you're attending E3, make sure to bring your Nintendo Switch with you, so you get these exclusive pins. But I think it's more to that, yo. I think they will say Fortnite is available right now after the Nintendo Direct. I can see that happening.
You know, they've been doing this thing with the hotspots, you know, like activating the 3DS in certain places. So it'll be like, if you come to Nintendo's booth or if you go to Epic Games booth right now, you can download the game and we'll give you a free Mario skin for your character, or one of those free, you remember those 8-bit hammers from Donkey Kong? Using that to get resources? That'd be like the ultimate damn hammer, I think. But if you do something like that, people will bring their Nintendo. So, I mean, they're going to bring it for the pins anyway, but having your Switch on hand to get that bonus goodie, that's just icing on the cake.
Or do this. You have the Nintendo Switch. You don't want to wait in line. Download Smash Brothers demo, limited time. It will shut down at the end of the E3 or something like that, but at least you could download it. And everybody that has a Nintendo Switch could play Smash Brothers during that time at E3. Because look, they could easily put it as a timer. It's not you're gonna have it forever, you know. But once the timer ends, I say you can't play it anymore. I can see that happening too.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that they're just going to have people bring their Switches for no reason just to give them the pin. I think there's more to it, that they're going to have you do something like that, because I've seen this plenty of times from them, you know, doing different little things like that here and there just for little goodies. But I could definitely see stuff like that happening. What I do hope is that we do get a little bit more clarity on some of the other games that were teased in the last couple of Nintendo Directs, including Bayonetta 3, including Metroid. I think that you don't get a lot. I think you get something, even though they're not going to be games coming out this year. Obviously, the big one is Smash Brothers. I think we're going to get more of a character listing as far as like characters that are confirmed, outside of what we saw in the teaser and what people already inferred from that. You know, the Splatoon 2 kids, obviously Mario, Zelda, or Link, and other characters, and, you know, the staples and stuff. I think that maybe there's a couple surprises. It'd be interesting to see if they reveal any third-party characters for that game that are like big deals. Because, I mean, there's rumors already for a while that Spyro and Crash might be characters in Smash Bros. That's a big deal. Especially if those games with Crash coming to Switch, with Spyro rumored to be coming to Switch, that's a very big deal. And I think that'll get a lot of people talking, especially if it's shown during the Smash Invitational. That's how you reveal it. That'd be very, very cool.
So I think you're onto something in terms of the downloadable demo thing, but they could offer anything. They could say, here's a taste of the Pokemon game, or here's Pokemon Snap 2. You never know. I mean, there is a number of things they could do. They've done that in the past with a level of interactivity where you brought your 3DS and you friend passed somebody. Like, say you friend passed Reggie Fils-Aimé, you know, something like that. So I would not be surprised if they did something like that and offered some demo or offered Fortnite goodies or whatever. I mean, that's the cool thing about Nintendo. They know how to build attention. But they're doing it the right. I mean, this whole thing with the Super Smash Brothers invite thing is perfect, because then their booth won't be loaded with a line that's 5 hours long. You know, it's a perfect plan, but people will still come by, check out what's up, and download something for their trouble.
Now, I think it's also the right time for Nintendo to also announce apps, video apps like Netflix, stuff like that, maybe Twitch. I don't. Now that's the tricky part. I don't know if it's possible to stream Twitch while playing. I don't know if they could do that.
They can't even figure out a viable chat solution right now. We need to get Discord on board before they get Twitch.
Yeah. So I think that's personally. I think that might happen. We might see those type of apps and stuff. Not maybe during the Nintendo Direct, but maybe like during the week of E3, they'll probably send like a little press release. Say, oh, these apps are available. Because Hulu works fine and it works great on the Switch, but I need Netflix, I need YouTube, I need all these other apps too, you know. So I can see that happening. What about you? Any other prediction for Nintendo?
I felt like that stuff with the app should have been done already. I feel like, you know, that should be standard amongst all the different console makers at this point. For me personally, I feel like also maybe they kind of divulge a little bit more about the online service, specifically the list of games that we get for being part of the online service for the year and stuff. I know that they said there's like about 20 or so games, but I mean like specific ones. And keep in mind, some of those games are supposed to be enhanced with like online functionality and stuff. But as far as like other things, one of the other things I want to mention also, I feel like we get other details about games like Pokemon. Because remember, there's a Pokemon game in development for the Switch that we know it's being in development, we just don't know what it is. And I feel like this is the right time to tease stuff like this. Nintendo has this habit of like showing us little things like what they did with Metroid Prime 4. Like, okay, this is in development, and people get excited about it, and that becomes a conversation. But they never really show anything. But I feel like now would be the time for games like that have already been seen or teased at this point. We see more of it, and games that we haven't seen it, we get teased of it at this point. And for me, the big one would be Pokemon, because I feel like that has the potential to be a very big deal, probably the biggest Pokemon game to date. If not also possibly other Pokemon-related stuff like Robert mentioned, Pokemon Snap and stuff. Why not port over Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon over to the Switch? Because a lot of people have wanted stuff like that to come over to the Switch for quite some time.
Which you think it will be if it happens, the biggest game of E3 do you think that we might see at this year?
Nintendo in general?
In general, just general.
It really depends on what Microsoft and Nintendo bring, but I'll be honest, we also shouldn't count seriously, yeah, and like Ubisoft, why do I keep saying Ubisoft? Ubisoft and Bethesda, they're going to bring their stuff as well. We already saw like Rage 2 confirmed by Bethesda, but they can announce Fallout 3 for Nintendo Switch. They can announce, a new Fallout altogether, a new Elder Scrolls, and then you got Ubisoft, who is rumored to bring Splinter Cell back, announce next year's Assassin's Creed game. I mean, it could really be anything. Like last year, wasn't it Ubisoft that dominated with Beyond Good and Evil 2 out of nowhere? I mean, seriously, the biggest game will probably be the one that we don't expect. And that's what I want. I want Microsoft to announce Jet Set Radio and blow our doors off, or Power Stone 3. I want Nintendo to show us how great Star Fox Racing looks, or for that matter, pull something out of their butts and introduce a new Paper Mario. I'd kill for a new Paper Mario built from scratch. So, I mean, to me, it's a matter of there's something out there that's going to floor us. The question is what? And I'm eager to see what it is. And it might even not even be from like the company we expect. For all we know, Nintendo will announce GameCube games for that online service that they're doing. Or it could be something even from Konami. They might announce the return of Contra for all I know. I mean, it could be anything. That's a really weird-ass guess, but I'm just saying. It could be anything. And that's what I love about this show, that somebody still has the power to surprise. I mean, it could even be Borderlands 3 at Sony's show. Or, like I said, a new Overwatch chapter, whatever. There's just the potential to be surprised. And that's why I love this show. I mean, along with seeing all these great people that, I get to hang out with, like you guys, there's also the possibility that something's just going to sit in your mind and be like, do you remember when they showed us Final Fantasy VII Remake? Do you remember when Shenmue 3 music played for the first time? And it just sits there in your mind like one of the greatest moments. Or like when Kevin Butler came out to deliver the ultimate address for E3. There's always that moment, and it sticks with you. And I love those moments.
What about you, man?
If we're talking strictly games, and if I was a safe betting man, I feel like, a lot of the conversation could come from games we already know are coming, that are already in development, but we actually, again, get to see more of really for the first time. And I feel like for me, the big mic drop moment would be for something that, again, I would say something like Metroid Prime 4. If we actually see it, like actually tangibly see it beyond a logo and stuff, or gameplay and stuff, to me, I feel like that's going to make a big splash, because, again, we're going to see things like Smash in like greater detail. We're going to see other games that are coming from PlayStation that we've already seen before and stuff. I think it's really tough to say like what's going to be the best one when there's so much potential for things to happen that we just don't know. We're not even thinking about right now. But again, I feel like the safer you are with your predictions, the safer that you are, thinking about that, the more that you could have potential to be blown away when something crazy like that. Again, if we get a Jet Set Radio reveal at Microsoft's conference, immediately that's the best announcement ever, because it's just so out of left field, and it's awesome because it's happening like that. Even though there's all these other great games that we want to play, that we want to see, that, again, we're seeing for the first time and stuff. So for me, if I was a betting man, I'd say give me Metroid Prime gameplay footage, and I'm good for E3.
Yeah.
All right, so last topic here. PlayStation announced that they're not doing a traditional press conference. Nintendo now, for the past few years, they've been doing a lot of Nintendo Directs for the E3. And Microsoft is the only one that's having their traditional press conference. Are you worried that more companies are going to do the whole video thing and stay away from the whole traditional E3 press conference? Because that, in my opinion, I had this discussion with Mandy, because I was telling her about that, and she mentioned that people at the end of the day just want to see trailers. They don't care who goes on stage. But to me, I find it special when I see Reggie on stage and saying there's one more thing, or like that surprise, you know what I'm saying? Instead of just showing a video. I like the traditional press conference, but yes, you can make changes. You can make changes, not keep it exactly traditional, but in the way that it's going to hype us up big time, you know? So, Robert?
I think the thing is with press conferences, if they're done the right way, they become memorable. Like when Shigeru Miyamoto came out after Twilight Princess was announced, sword and shield in hand. But you can also make it a complete cluster, like Sony's show when they announced PlayStation 3, or Konami's whatever the hell just happened with their press conference. The press conference is simply there as a stage to set stuff up, but you can do it digitally too. But I think the art of the press conference still remains intact. Bethesda's going to do one, and they're going to have a nice showcase with it, just as they always did with Bethesda Land with their previous shows. Ubisoft will still do one because they like that crowd reaction like they got last year with Beyond Good and Evil. And, Microsoft will have a big one, obviously. I do feel a little sadness Nintendo doesn't do it anymore, but they're on the right track because their last one with Nintendo Land was a dud. There was no real surprise there. And Sony's going for something a little more quiet, but they're still going to get a lot of attention. So I still believe in the art of the press conference. It's just a matter of doing it the right way. And I still think some companies are still going to try to do that. EA Play's even going to try to do that. EA is going to have some announcements. Dragon Age, maybe, that sort of thing. But there's going to be that presence that's still at E3. They're still going to do a press conference somewhere as long as it's done the right way. When it becomes to the point where it becomes redundant and why am I here listening to this drivel? Then it can go away. But I think as long as there's still the power to surprise and throw us off and keep us interested, I think the press conference won't go away.
I think there's a charm to that culture of having an actual press conference, because not only because of E3 it's a traditional thing to do, I think it's just something that's been so televised, it's been so blown up, it's been so sensationalized, like that us as the audience and even us here in the media, we get accustomed to that. And when things like that change, when Nintendo stopped doing their press conferences, we all said like this is the worst thing ever, but somehow they found ways to make it work and make it different and kind of change with the times that still gets the point across and still gets what they want to get across to everybody, but still presented in a different way. I think there's also an element of money and obviously space and mindshare that goes along with it. But for us, I think it's also more that we associate the different personalities when we see them in person. We associate the brand and we associate the console maker with that individual. Like with PlayStation, we always associate it with Shuhei Yoshida. What is it? Mark Cerny, whenever he floats into the stage to talk about Knack 2. Different stuff like that. Or when, Microsoft comes out, we see Phil Spencer, we see Aaron Greenberg. We associate these individuals with that brand. And because of the press conferences, we've been able to do that on a much more grander scale. It becomes a lot more special like that. And I don't think that's ever going to go away. I don't think that association with the personalities is ever going to go away, or the individuals that are part of the companies is ever going to be like that. I just think that, with the changing of it not being physically there and just sometimes digital like that, it just changes forms just to kind of, change with the times like that. But I still think like all these different ways are effective. However, I still think that certain companies will not get away from doing certain things here and there. Like obviously Nintendo was really the one to take the plunge to do that, but I don't see like Sony not having a physical conference. I don't see Microsoft not having a physical conference, because I feel like those companies, especially here in the West, here for the United States and stuff, there's a lot of people that are really kind of fascinated with that type of culture, the sensationalization of it all, and kind of like blowing it up to make it something really special.
I know we're going to wrap it up here in a few minutes here, but I want to ask you about the future of E3, because we've been going to E3 for years. This is going to be my 13th one. You've probably been there even before me, right? Since 2000. So, and I think Paris went 2000, 2001, around there. So, future of E3, man. They've been making changes the past few years. Now it's open to the public. I personally, I think change is good. It might fail. It might be huge. It might be the greatest E3 ever. Never know. But it's good that the ESA has been experimenting to see if it works. Last year, first day was a disaster because of the open to the public. A lot of media couldn't go to their appointments. They let the regular public attendee to go first while the press, we were like all the way in the back. But this time, they have it set up in a way that now it's kind of like Gamescom. We're going to have a certain amount of hours, just media, and then the attendees, which I think it works great that way. But are you worried for the future of E3 because more companies are getting out of the convention, having their own events on the side? Like EA started doing that. Microsoft just left, and the only booth they have there is for Mixer and stuff. So, your thoughts about that, the change of E3 in the future?
There are a couple things to consider here. Number one, E3 is not the same show it was like, say, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. They did away with the booth babes. They kind of did away with the fun events outside of it, say for like whatever Devolver Digital does or any parties. I mean, they kind of made it more serious. And in a way it works because it does focus more on the games that way, but by also the same token, it takes away from what we remember in the earlier days of E3. So it does kind of reflect in a bad way. The public thing, I think, is kind of a cluster. The public thing is kind of a pain in the butt because I do understand that they want to let public people in the show and everything, but by doing it without doing like a media entrance or, obviously the media hours are going to help, but I don't know. I think they're trying to turn it into a PAX, and it's really about an industry show, so it's kind of questionable. And then there's another thing to consider, the price is just to get a booth. Because like I understand the concourse hall, just getting a small room is like $100,000. And then getting a big mega booth is obviously like $3 million, $4 million. So that's why companies like EA are kind of, and Microsoft, they're experimenting with their little things. So, I mean, it's going to come to a point where the ESA is going to take a hard look and be like, okay, what can we do to keep these companies around? What can we do to balance out so that the attendees are happy, but we still do stuff the right way? So this year's show is going to kind of be a test. It's going to be if we can balance out the media, if we can balance out the attendees, if we can keep the companies happy and see what pans out. I mean, who knows? It might even be in Los Angeles anymore. At one point, they might move it just Midwest just to make it a little easier for people to access. So,
or East Coast.
Exactly, or East Coast. Hell, I'd take a New York E3. Why not? But it's just be a matter of they need to gauge what's going to happen with this year's show, pay close attention, and see, where the negatives are and shake those out immediately. Because if these negatives keep building up, it will affect them in the worst way possible, and that's when more companies will leave. I think the ESA needs to pay close attention and just make things right. I mean, I know they want public, I know they want more ticket sales, but also remember the companies need to stay. I mean, they came to see these companies. If Microsoft keeps shaking out, if EA keeps shaking out, others will follow. So there's an important lesson we learned here. I just hope they learn it.
I think this year is going to be a testament and going to be a real test for the feedback that we got. And I think that the feedback that's the most important that probably ESA took was from the people that are industry people, not just the media, not just the public and stuff. I think really the industry people is what really spoke loud and clear after how last year ended up turning out, with it being a little bit chaotic than the last previous years. I think that also, as far as like the future with it being stable, being like a relevant show, because I think a lot of people like to throw the word relevant around when they're talking about E3 without really understanding like, its comparison to like places like PAX, places like Comic-Con and stuff like that. Because I feel like the ESA wants the E3 to be something that's more, they want to have the same type of profitability and also the same type of like maybe a little bit more so the reaction of what you get from like a PAX, as far as like the attendees, the common person going and stuff, while still maintaining that same prestige of being an industry-only event. And I think that's the dichotomy and the balance act that they have to play. And I feel like with the feedback that they probably got from last year for this year, stuff like having earlier hours and more hours for the media and industry people only before the public goes in, having E3 stay open later, which again is the first time I've ever heard of E3 staying way past like 5 or 6 o'clock. It's a big deal. To people like me that, have to cover the games, have to go see all these different games all over the place. And also the people that work the booths. That's a big change and stuff. But I think also as far as the show still remaining and being what it is and stuff, I always said that if another one of the big three ever left E3, it was done. And I always said that probably the next one to go would be PlayStation because of PSX, because they have their own show, because they have the ability to be at a big enough show, a big enough event that's just them. And not have to share the same mind share, where they could do things at their own pace. They could do things at their own choice. They could have PlayStation people, which are the people that will ride or die with them. And I feel like the next one after that, since PlayStation Experience is a thing, I always felt like Microsoft at some point would do the same thing, and then that would be the death toll for something like E3, because these companies could go and do their own thing wherever they want, on their own time, on their own dime and stuff, without having to go through the hurdles I think that it probably has to go through with the ESA going to have a place at E3, go to have a conference at one of the different places. Because remember, Microsoft changed their traditional conference from the original building they were at. Now they're going to the Microsoft Theater, which makes more sense to me because Microsoft Theater. But I still feel like the show's going to be around. I still feel like I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. But I still think like change is still going to come eventually. And I think down the line, it'll be an even more vastly different show than what it's been in the past.
All right, so I just want to say thanks to Jake and Robert for a great conversation about E3. I'm excited for E3 overall. Sometimes we always say all these like predictions. Sometimes, it might be wrong. Sometimes it could be correct that we're right? So that's possible. But I just want to say thank you to you guys, and I hope we'll get to hang out during E3 and stuff. It gets kind of chaotic because we're like freaking everywhere. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, Robert, you gonna say something?
Yeah, bring Paris if you want.
There you go. Oh, bring Paris. Oh, snap.
I kid with Paris.
But yeah, so listeners, let us know your thoughts. Send us your feedback. Email us, fam@gamertagradio.com. Give us a call. 786-273-7GTR. That's 786-273-7GTR. Or go to SpeakPipe. Go to speakpipe.com/gamertag radio, and you can also record your message worldwide from your phone or computer, and we're going to play on the show. So head over to gamertagradio.com or audioboom.com. Post your comments and feedback. Share our content with your friends, family, everybody. Whenever you get the chance, go to Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and other podcast directories. Make sure to subscribe, post a review. It will help us out to climb the charts, man. So just want to say thank you for listening to this latest episode of Gamertag Radio. Thank you to Jake. Jake, very quick, mention your website very quick.
Of course, I'm at thecoalition.com. I do a whole bunch of reviews and a whole bunch of other great stuff there that you guys will love.
All right. And Robert, mention your website.
I'm at comicbook.com/gaming. You can find my art podcast show on retrozap.com, twitter.com/thedcd. You know where to find me.
All right. As we're out here, until next time, see you online. Peace.
Thanks for listening to Gamertag Radio. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Thank you for listening to Gamertag Radio. If you'd like to donate and help us out for future events and more coverage and also better audio equipment, head over to donate.gamertagradio.com. That's donate.gamertagradio.com. Thank you.